1. I am a 22-year-old waitress. For some context, I am pansexual and was wearing a very colorful makeup and some earrings with the LGBT plus flag on them. My workplace will be shut down next week because of a high debt in the franchise, so we don't care anymore about our job, even if we still try to do the best that we can. Half of the staff is part of the community too. Now on to the story. We sat a couple, both maybe in their 60s, and the moment they saw me, they looked at me like I was a plague. I was annoyed, but still went to do my job, and got to their table to take their order. When I approached them, they were kind of rude to me, but it is what it is, and I took upon myself and took their drinks order. When I got back to their table to bring their drinks, they asked me if I wasn't ashamed of myself. I was confused and asked them what they meant, and they waved their hand to designate my earrings. I got confused, and then remembered which ones I was wearing, and at that point I was pissed. I told them that it was only earrings and that there was nothing upsetting about them. They looked more annoyed and told me that I was setting a bad example for children and that people like me should keep a low profile. I'm Latina, but where I live people think I'm Middle Eastern, and they're really racist toward those people, and that I'm an anomaly. At that moment, I was like, fuck it, I'll be jobless soon, so I'm gonna tell these rude customers to go fuck themselves. So I looked at them both and told them, do you know that homophobia is discrimination, and that it's punished by law? We're here since the dawn of the world, and we're not going anywhere. I'm sorry that you're such jerks with a closed mind that a simple rainbow triggers you. I bet you get an episode when there's sun right after the rain and that Mother Nature is doing her thing. But I guess I will not be dealing with your BS since you're soon going to be with your moms, if you're almost having a heart attack from a flag and some colors in a face. They were shocked, and soon they were mad and demanded that I get my boss. Little did they know that my boss, one of the directors, is gay, so I went to get him, and let's say that he never stayed really polite with rude clients, and that he matched the energy. It was a mess, and he told them to go pay the bill for their drinks and to get lost. The two clients started to get loud and threatening to call corporate and the cops to file a complaint. So my director told them to do so, because what will corporate do about the situation since our establishment will be closing within a week? The other director came back to check on the situation, and he told them the same thing as the customers. I was there the whole time and enjoyed every second of it. Later, other customers were praising the director and myself for standing up for ourselves and left some tips. They aren't mandatory in my country. So yeah, it was one of the rare times that I stood up for myself, and I'm quite proud of me. 2. A resignation letter that belongs in a museum. I mean, it doesn't, but it at least belongs somewhere, which is here. And for context, the owner of the restaurant also owns a sock shop, which is why there are multiple sock references. Mr. Sockworth, I didn't think it would be helpful or necessary for me to respond to you at all, but was encouraged by friends and family that I should for future reference. I appreciate that you put your thoughts about what occurred on that day in writing, because it helps me understand your interpretation of workplace events, and also reaffirms my reaction to the events of that day. I was scheduled to arrive at 8:30 a.m. instead of 8 a.m., so it would save the business $7.87 in labor costs. When I did, as usual, things were already challenging. It was a beautiful day of early summer, and the entire patio was full, with more guests pouring in for available tables. As usual, very few of the tables, inside or outside, were properly set up. They may have had water glasses, but even if they were occupied, there would be no water in the glasses. Many who already ordered as usual had no silverware. Guests were told by another to sit where they wanted, even if the table they chose was not ready for them. There was no host, food runner, or busser to help easily manage the situation. There was no front-of-house manager or owner or manager of any kind present at the time. This was in the middle of brunch rush on Saturday morning, all to avoid additional labor costs on your end. There was only one line cook who was already sweating his ass off. I respect him extremely. If this sounds like a normal, manageable situation, You have clearly never owned or worked in a restaurant before, which you haven't. I called you for assistance, and you declined. You were probably selling funny socks. While I was overwhelmed and keeping my composure, my coworker, Ms. Warhol, was occupying her time drawing flowers on the specials board, not checking on her table's water or coffee situation, leaving stacks of dirty dishes on unoccupied tables, letting food get cold in the kitchen window because she refuses to run another server's food, and rolling silverware. There were 7 tables that needed to be bussed, cleaned, and set up for incoming parties, and 5 others that needed their orders taken so they didn't feel ignored. The general manager finally arrived, and I communicated my frustration with the current situation. I pointed how much of a disaster was happening in the dining room, and how it felt like I was the only one working in the front of house. He then started rolling silverware. If my absence that day prompted stress from your front of house employees, remember that this is the first summer you've been in charge of this place. If you thought only 2 servers were appropriate for a successful restaurant, that is a strong indication that you have no interest in running one. After I left, the 2 servers were stressed out because they didn't have an extra set of hands. That was your decision for my shift initially. Ironically, you mentioned in your letter that it was inappropriate behavior for me not to leave at exactly 2:15 in the past, because it increased your labor costs. Do you have any idea why I was there for an extra 40 or 50 minutes? You don't, because you have no interest in seeing what mess I'm gladly cleaning up when my shift should be over. You're probably busy selling silly socks again. Imagine if I was your pilot on Spirit Airlines, and we got into a windstorm on the way to LAX. Our landing time was delayed, so I announced on the loudspeaker that I was just going to parachute out because my shift was over. Imagine if you accidentally left your dog in your car in the Walmart parking lot in Missouri when it was 1:05 out. You were locked in the bathroom, but you called Ms. Warhol to see if she could grab a hammer and go break your car window so your dog would survive. She responded, "Sorry, I'm busy rolling silverware. Regards, Lil Peepee." 3. Gonna start by saying quickly thank you to my manager for coming to the rescue and going above and beyond. I'm a 21-year-old male, and I work at a small bar located in a theater. We are open before shows, during intermission, and after shows. Unfortunately, until recently, customers couldn't bring drinks into the theater due to our mask policy. About a month or so ago, there was a gentleman who came up to the bar 2 minutes before the show began and asked for a coffee. With our no-drink policy in the theater, my coworker, who took their order, let the gentleman know he would have to finish drinking before going in. As I went to take his payment, I reminded him of what my coworker had already mentioned, and the gentleman jabbed back with a sharp, "Just give me my coffee," reply. With a smile under my mask, I was going to let it go. I did my job. I let the guy know what someone may say to him as he heads towards the entrance. The man continued to speak to me, telling me that he doesn't care to hear what I have to say. He said that if a customer asks for something, you just give it to them and keep your mouth shut. I still hadn't replied, and he kept talking until my manager, who isn't normally standing behind the bar, overheard, and asked the man if there was anything he could help with. The gentleman started going off about his brother and how whenever he visits San Francisco, the service is so much better. Not understanding where that came from, my manager asked the man to please stop talking down to the bartenders and let the man know to go enjoy the show. The man shouted back, "You're a real a-hole, and you're a real bully to customers," and walked away towards the exit, not the theater where the show had just begun. After all that, we spoke with some of the box office crew, and they mentioned that he gave them a hard time, more than just the bar. Apparently, he walked into the theater at 5:30 when the show started at 7:30 p.m. Box office and bar doesn't open till 6 p.m. He came in with the dog, let the dog off the leash, and ignored anyone's attempt to ask for the dog to be put back on the leash. When the box office did open, he went right up without a mask and asked for his tickets to see the show. They told him his tickets were for Friday's showing and that it's Wednesday. He obviously gave it to them and continued towards the theatre entrance. Ushers generally open doors to seating at 7 p.m, and he was there at 6:10 giving them a hard time and telling them he should be allowed to go in and sit, and he doesn't need someone to tell him where he can and can't sit. After they got him off that subject, someone asked him politely to put a mask on, as it is policy. And as you may have guessed, he gave them a hard time about why he shouldn't have to follow the rules. After hearing about all this, my manager, who fought with him over a cup of coffee, took right to some of the higher command and got this gentleman's tickets for Friday, when he was really supposed to come see the show, cancelled. 4. I'm reaching out with some thoughts, as I was just fired from one of New York City's most exclusive private members clubs, and the whole situation just seems very unfair. I'll start off by saying that I've never received any type of warning or write-up during my last year of working for the company. I take my job very seriously, and have been an asset to the team. I'm a 32-year-old female, and I've been in this industry my whole life. I've worked with some of the best in Manhattan restaurants and cocktail bars over the last decade. I'm always early. I show up 30 to 45 minutes before my shift to make sure I have time to change after my commute, so I can be professional and ready on the floor. I've only been late maybe 2 or 3 times, and I always over-communicate with management if I'm in that situation. I'm a team player. Ask any of the staff there and they will tell you I'm always ready to lend a hand. If I have a free moment, you can find me tidying up service areas, running drinks, and asking other servers if they need assistance. I get great scores in all my food and beverage tests. I don't look at my phone during service, and I'm always at attention. Our members love me. I'm personable, always smiling, and I remember their names and drink orders. Getting to this past Friday night, I was sectioned in a particularly large lounge without a dedicated busser. Every other section has a server and their own busser. It was slow back there until close around 8:30 or 9, when the whole club and restaurant were full. I got 6 tables at one time, and it was a bit of a scramble to get everyone, but I was trying my hardest to make it happen. A party of 2 gentlemen ordered food immediately upon sitting down, before I was able to get their drinks. I took the order quickly, and gentleman 1 asked me if what he had ordered, minestrone soup, wagyu steak, was gluten-free. I was moving too fast and made a mistake in telling him yes. I didn't think about the macaroni in the soup. This is admittedly my error. However, he did not in fact mention an allergy. I had many tables all at once and I had no support. The rest of the club was grooving and they couldn't lend a hand, so I'm attempting to get waters, drink orders, and setups for all these tables on my own, multitasking as best as I could manage alone. Gentleman 1 received the minestrone and took a bite before realizing there was pasta. He told me then that gluten would make him sick the next day. I acknowledged my mistake and profusely apologized. I bussed the still full soup back to dish and went straight to the manager and told her what happened. She advised me to apologize, split the soup off the check, and send a complimentary appetizer, so that is exactly what I did. I'm also a decent human being and felt really bad about the mistake I had made. I apologized again and spent time at the table, talking to the 2 gentlemen. He still didn't mention anything about an allergy. He had taken a bite and then mentioned it might upset his stomach. But he was laughing and making jokes about it with me. It seemed we had a good rapport and he enjoyed the rest of his meal. He stayed late until closing at the bar with his friends. The following day, Saturday, they allowed me to pick up a shift from another server. They allowed me to work the entire shift until after 12 a.m. before sitting me down and firing me on site. The manager never gave me a chance to tell my side of what happened. I never got a word in. The GM talked over me the whole time and said it was an immediate termination, even though I have a squeaky clean record with the company. I fully expected to be written up for my mistake. The manager who had told me to send the app was written up for the same incident. I know that the guest didn't get sick because my managers didn't even know who it was. They had to ask me which member it was the next day, and I told them his name. If he had gotten sick and complained, they would have known his name. Herein lies the major issue of injustice. I know for a fact that 2 other servers have made an allergy mistake in the past. 2 male servers, both who nearly killed someone because of a severe nut allergy that they didn't communicate to the kitchen. On one incident, the guest left on a stretcher. And those male servers, they got write-ups, they didn't get fired. The troll of a woman who is a director of operations has even joked about it in pre-shift meeting before, making fun of the server who nearly killed someone, and using him as an example in the meeting. One of them actually still works there, and he is one of the captains. They make more money from the tip pool as appointed server leaders. A few of the other captains, all male of course, get drunk every shift, and I mean every shift. They ring in extra cocktails, and they bust them to dish to chug. I know there is a couple snorting coke during their shifts. I have witnessed that in the locker room, it's messy. The boys get a pass because they're indoctrinated with the troll from a different private club. She brought them all with her to open this place a couple years ago. She has her boys' club, and she lets them do whatever they want. They make more money than the rest of us, and they're supposed to be leaders among the servers. But they don't pull their weight. The double standard is wildly obvious and gross. I don't want my job back. The culture behind the scenes here is incredibly toxic, so I'm all set. It's a blessing in disguise for me, truly happy to be done with the torture and anxiety of working there. I just wanted to shed a little light on how even some of the best places are actually being run. I know that the troll has texted with another server and is spreading a false narrative that I suggested that soup to gentleman one. This could not be further from the truth, and it is extremely unprofessional to be texting with a tipped employee. She doesn't think we talk. As I explained, I was juggling about 3 orders, 4 setups, 2 people flagging me down, and I sure as heck didn't have time to suggest things from the menu at that time. I could hardly get all 30 of my guests water in a timely fashion. I was not given support on the floor, and I was set up for failure. So to be spreading lies that I recommended that dish really doesn't sit well with me. It is not what happened. The thing that really makes that membership club excellent is the staff. The troll is a bully, and she's going to run any good people out of there eventually. Employees are looking for other opportunities, because the money we make isn't nearly enough to make up for the way they are treated and talked down to. Did I get to see and talk to celebrities all the time? Yes. Did it make up for having to take our breaks in a dirty back stairwell, because there's no employee bathroom or break room? No. I'll be getting my state insurance license and getting the fuck out of this hellish industry. Yeehaw. So I'm a 21-year-old female and work at this family-owned Italian restaurant and bar that's supposed to be like fine dining, but it's only kind of. I started out busing last year, and in January they made me a waitress. There are these 2 guys that would come in like every Friday and would always stop me to talk and ask me when they'd make me a waitress, and when I would finally have them as a table. I would always just be polite and laugh and be like, oh, sometime. Probably like sometime in February, the one guy told the owner when he came in that he didn't care what job I was doing that day, he wanted me to be his waitress. So whatever, my boss sat him in my section, and these guys were always weird, but nothing too crazy, like that I felt there was going to be a problem. I'm always polite and smiling, and will joke around with them back. It was kind of weird, because every week they'd come in, they would make jokes about me being so innocent, and asking if I went to high school, and telling me I'm so great and all this weird shit. It was kind of annoying, and the innocent comments would make me uncomfortable, the way they would say it, since I look young. And then this one Friday in March was so bad. I was serving them like usual, and only one of them ever drinks alcohol, and the other one just has iced tea. And the guy who doesn't drink made like a virgin joke to me. It was kind of weird, but I just brushed it off and told my boss they're so weird, which he already knew. And then later on, during their dinner, they asked me to bring them their food out instead of some random person. I laughed and said I'd do my best, but we have a food runner, and I was busy with other tables, so obviously I'm going to let the food runner bring your food out. When I came back to check up on them, the same guy who made the virgin joke was like, "Oh, you're in trouble if you don't bring out our food. Next time you're getting a spanking." Like, oh my god. Who says that? I'm working right now. I just kind of walked away. I didn't know what to do. So I told all my coworkers and my boss. He asked me if I wanted him to say anything to them, and I told him yes, since it made me really uncomfortable. So he finished the table for me, and I didn't have to go back up to them. But it was annoying because the head waiter, after I told him, started telling me it's my fault that I let them speak to me like that, and I should have said something in the moment. I felt very awkward and probably would have cried if I did. But him blaming me made me start crying at the bar while I was trying to get drinks, and it was so embarrassing, my coworkers seeing me. But my boss felt bad for me at least, and on the guy's way out he told them I would never wait on them again, and I was very upset about the whole thing. And yesterday was the first time I saw them since that. It was very awkward. I refused to even make eye contact with them, and the waiter who told me it was my fault said I should go up to them and say hi so I'm not letting them win. He said since it's obvious they don't feel guilty about it if they're still coming in. It made me tear up because, that's so uncomfortable for me, and I didn't say a word to them the whole time. I hope they never come back. Hey everybody, Hellfreezer here, and thank you very much for listening to Spinning Plates, episode 213. And thank you very much to everybody who allowed me to use their stories in this video. If you'd be so kind, I would appreciate it if you pressed the like button before you left. It helps the video get recommended to other people. I know some of you like having old Hellfreezer to yourself, but help spread the word. Alrighty, no other business today, so let's move right along to Hellfreezer's question of the day. And today's question is there such a thing in your mind as too much sugar? As you may have heard me talk about in the past, one of my favorite confections is something called tablet, or specifically Scottish tablet, which is basically sugar, butter, vanilla, little milk, and condensed milk, all melted together, then allowed to set. It is like heaven, melts in your mouth. But it is mostly sugar. So for a lot of people, it might be a bit too much, a bit too sweet, a bit too much sugar. But let me know what you think in a comment below. And with that, I'm going to head off for now. So until next time, thank you very much for listening, and take very good care of yourselves.